So somebody sent me a 3D printer. He or she shall not be named. Definitely appreciate it. Thank you again. Gave me the opportunity to dip my toes into the world of 3D printing, something that I've been interested in, but unwilling to take the financial leap into exploring. And I bet you can't guess what I printed first. I'll give you a hint though. I am immature. What's up YouTube? Jason here with Byte My Bits. Today's video is kind of off the cuff. I just want to, I don't know, share what I've learned in the brief time I spent with a 3D printer. Maybe I'll title this video, The Things I Learned About 3D Printing Within My First 24 Hours of Owning a 3D Printer, or some kind of cliff-noted version of that. So I've had this 3D printer for, I don't know, maybe a week and a half, but I've really only messed with it for a day. That was this last Sunday where I plugged it in, installed the software, messed with, different 3D models and really just tinkered with it. So even though I've had it for longer, I want to say that this is everything that I learned in one day, or at least the day period of a day. Like 12 hours. And I want to cover some of those things that I learned in today's video before I tell you what I printed first, which is very immature of me. Just one thing before I tell you, I am very, very new to 3D printing. I Googled the minimal amount of data necessary in order to get my first 3D print to work. I'm talking just bare minimal knowledge here. So all of you people out there who know anything about 3D printing, you're probably going to be slapping your face like, oh, this is so obvious. And I get that. I respect that. But you have to look at this from my point of view. I enjoy tinkering with things that I don't fully understand or don't understand at all. It's fun to dive in, learn how to do it the wrong way, and then, look up the right way to do it and then still fail to do it the right way. So the first thing that I learned about 3D printing is that, and stick with me here, it's a little obvious, but there are different types of plastic. I knew that there were different types of materials. I mean, obviously you can print with something like metal or plastic, but I didn't really know that there are like multiple different types of plastics that melt at different heating points, used for different applications. I say didn't know, I knew, but I just wasn't fully aware of the diversity of different plastics that you can purchase in this whole spindle form used for 3D printing. Now this is the Up Mini 3D printer. Now it uses the ABS plastics, and I think it actually melts at a higher melting point than other ABS plastics. I remember when I was looking through on the plastics and stuff, I found something that mentioned that this heats up a little bit hotter than other 3D printers do. I don't know if they're all like that, but I know it's all closed off and it has to cool down a certain way and stuff like that. But that was one of the things I learned, was that there are different plastics, and that was one of the things that I was looking into, because I was like, okay, what happens when the spool runs out? Like, I have to buy more ammo for it. So where do I go? Do I have to buy the product specific, the name brand specific plastics, or can I get on Amazon and get like an Amazon Basics version of plastic, and will it work the same? As of right now, I have absolutely no idea. I'm completely uncertain of how to reload this thing, but I will. I know that I can go to the website and I can buy a spindle for like 40 bucks, but I don't know if that's the cheapest option. $40 for a roll of plastic seems expensive, but again, I don't know. But I still learned that there are different types of plastics, and they're like ABS and PLT and BLT and SQR. Actually, those don't exist, but you get what I'm going. Now, the next thing I learned with 3D printing is calibration. Calibration. It is key, because you will not start a print if you do not calibrate it correctly. And when I figured that out, I'm like, duh, Jason. I mean, it's not like super smart. It has to know when the little, extrude thingy is actually on the plate. But still, it didn't stop me from trying without doing it. So getting my first print to start, I just plugged stuff in, I hit print, and it went down, and it didn't do what it was supposed to do. And I mean, I was way not prepared in order to do my first 3D print. But I ended up going through the software, not only initializing the printer itself, but then going through and calibrating every point, or every major point in the base plate to touch the little extruder thingy. And extruder thingy is hereby the official name. And to calibrate it, I actually used a piece of paper folded in half, like a regular piece of printer paper. I folded it in half and put it in there, and I pretty much just inched up millimeter by millimeter until the paper was just barely being snagged by the extruder, being held in between the plate and the little extruder thingy. And I did that for all 9 points in the calibration program, and once I did it like that, things were a lot better for me. Before I did that, the little head was just like either stabbing into the plate or not touching it at all. It was stupid for me to do that. Now my first 3D print after I did that went really well, and then I tried to start another 3D print with a different plate because reasons, and I didn't calibrate it again, and of course I had to calibrate it again before it would work. So in my limited testing with my 2 prints, I can successfully tell you that you have to calibrate every single time because it's been a necessity 100% of my prints. I don't know if that's like that for all of them, but for me, that's what it was. Speaking of the extruder, I had kind of a stupid moment where I was trying to load plastics into the top here, and I pushed it in there and I loaded up the software, got everything installed, and I hit the extrude button. And the extrude button stayed pressed down. It was just doing the arrow, but this wasn't doing anything. It wasn't making any noise, wasn't moving it down. So then I hit stop, I hit extrude again, I hit stop, it didn't work. I unplugged it, plugged it back in, reinstalled the program. I spent an embarrassing amount of time trying to get the plastic loaded into this extruder head before I realized that the extruder head has to warm up before it will shove the plastic in the hole. It's so obvious once I figured it out. I did the face palm thing. But if I use this channel for anything, it's to embarrass myself. So there you have it. I spent probably 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes trying to figure out why I couldn't get the plastic in the hole. Just let the extruder head warm up, and then the plastic will go in the hole. And then once I got done with my first 3D print, that is again where I learned, holy bananas, there are a lot of supports for 3D prints, especially the ones that has like more on top than on bottom, for obvious reasons now, but it's just, plastics can't float in midair. You can't 3D print to air. It needs support. I know this is super obvious, but when I got my first 3D printout, I'm like, oh my God, there's so much like cutting and sanding and removing of these supports to expose the print that I did for the first time. So yeah, I love it. I mean, this is literally my first print, so I'm like experiencing all this, and I've seen some of this before, but I've never really fully paid attention like I probably should have, or did the research like I probably should have before I printed what I did, which I'm getting to. Actually, you know what? Let's get to that. Keep in mind, I am slightly immature. And if you happen to be watching this video with any young children around, or anybody who, I don't know, gets offended really easily, you may want to close or mute this video. So the first thing that I 3D printed with my Up Mini 3D printer was a dick butt. That's right. The first thing that popped out of this 3D printer, at least within my household, was a 3D copy of a dick butt. Yeah. There's actually kind of like an inside joke at work that had this model in mind when I was hooking everything up. I mean, it's not just like, this is the first thing that pops in my head when I think 3D printer, but it just happened to be that day. And yeah, I painted it gold. And I shrunk it down because this is my first one and I wanted to go quick. This took 38 minutes to print. So I took the model and I shrunk it down, and that actually made it very difficult because the legs are super skinny. And as you can tell, the body, if you want to call it that, of the dick butt floats in air. So there's a lot of support. Going back to the support thing I was talking about, there's a lot of support to hold the body in the air. So, and cutting all that out was very difficult because these little legs are super skinny. I broke one, by the way, got Gorilla Glue, had to glue it back together. So, I learned a little bit printing a dick butt. Also, sanding is definitely a thing when it comes to 3D printing. I knew this before, but I tried to sand this, and I'll have some B-roll maybe of this dick butt while I'm talking, but I try to sand this and I end up breaking the leg again, and it was just kind of overly complicated, and really I was impatient, so I just painted it gold and black over the rough edges. So yeah, we have an unsanded, poorly painted golden dick butt as my first 3D print. Yes, if you want to unsubscribe, I completely understand. I am a child. So 3D printing takes a lot of sanding, and I haven't used, but somebody mentioned, and I totally agree without testing, that the better way to sand would probably be a Dremel with the right attachments. I never actually whipped out my Dremel. I do have one still new in box, but never used it. And because I was having such fragile issues with the legs, I never wanted to actually take a power tool to it. I can and will in future 3D prints, but for this one, it was definitely a very rough draft print. So I was okay with it. But sanding is a thing, and I did not do it. But moving past that, and then the last thing I really learned that kind of stuck to me that I knew but I never experienced was 3D printing takes a long time. Everyone out there is like, well, no shit, Jason. 3D printing definitely takes a long time. You already should have known that, and I did. But again, this took 38 minutes. So my first experience with this really tiny dick butt print was 38 minutes. In fact, I don't use Twitch for anything except for random nonsensical streams like stupid gaming or stuff, but I actually streamed the 3D print of the dick butt. And I also streamed the second print that I attempted to do. So, you know, that was fun. I don't know why I did that, but that was interesting. Oh, and speaking of that, even if I don't want to stream anymore, I definitely need to buy some like LEDs and stick them in on the inside of this to light this thing up, like a microwave or something, because you cannot see in it. This thing has like a tint, which I don't understand why they didn't just make it completely clear plastic, but I need to buy some like Amazon LEDs or something in here that's not battery powered, because I used batteries and those died, in here to light it up. So I could either A, film it, or B, look at it without disturbing it. And that brings me to my second print, which ended up being a failed print, although I did give it a good old E for effort. And that is a 3D model of a Colt 1911. Yes, I think. Anyways, it's a 3D print of a gun. I wanted to print this, and then I was gonna print like a little stand for it. You know, it's like I had to shrink it down though, because this is only, I don't know, 6 inches both ways. So I had to shrink it down in order to fit to the platform. So I was like, oh, I wanna do this, and I wanna sand it, and I wanna paint it, and I wanna make it look super cool and probably not realistic, but I'll try. And it just did not work. Basically built within the model, it has all these little supports and everything built into it, but when I took the model into the program and I shrunk it down, I think this is 85 or 75% of the original size or whatever it is I did in the program. It also shrunk the support platform, which in doing so created this blob of plastic when the support platform didn't hold up on the bottom. So it's just every time it went over it, and it had the little cover or the shield here that was just getting messed up, and like the trigger shield, and it was just kind of downhill from there. Now I actually just made the decision. I'm like, you know what? Even if this is a screwed up print, I just want to let it do its thing. I'm already this dedicated into it. It's like 2 hours or whatever it was into it. But 3D printing takes so long. This one was saying it was going to take over 4 hours, almost 5 to get done. So just let it do its thing, and I'll just accept the failure as a success in some way. But unfortunately, somewhere around the 3 hour some mark, the head randomly decided to lose its flux capacity and just stopped printing. The plastics were still there, it was still spitting it out, but it stopped. It was moving around, doing its thing, and it looked like it was trying to, but it's like the little string of plastic somehow got broke or something, and it stopped doing its printing thing. So 3 hours plus wasted on a failed print. That was very frustrating. And that goes back to the whole, oh my God, this takes a lot of time, because I get like over 3 hours into this project, and then it stops, or it messes up, and then it stops, and it's like, there's no resume printing, you know? I mean, that would be extremely difficult. Maybe there is. Again, like 12 hours is spent with this thing. But yeah. So I used a bunch of plastic, spent a bunch of time, tried to do this print. It failed on me. And now I have what I consider something of an art piece. I don't know what I'm gonna do with it, but I don't wanna destroy it. I do wanna try to get it off this platform without actually breaking it. So I'm gonna have to, you know, jab it a few times. Probably gonna break the hell out of it. But I'm gonna jab it a few times, see if I can get this off and still use it as a something, I don't know. But that was kind of one of the little things that I wanted to do, was like a model of a gun like this, and then build like, or 3D model like a stand of some kind to put it on. You know, I don't know. I haven't really thought that far ahead. The first thing was print the gun, you know, sand the gun, and then paint the gun, and then worry about the rest later. But, you know, I'm gonna try this again maybe this weekend. Some things I look forward to are creating my own 3D models. I'm gonna go through some already pre-designed 3D models, and I'm going to try out certain things, and I've learned some things with that, like the supports for the dick butt actually had an auto generation in the 3D modeling software, whereas this one, although there was some extra ones thrown in, the supports on this one were actually in the model itself, at least from what I can tell. So these are designed into the model to be cut off, which I'm gonna use this kind of information. If I do come up with something that I want to 3D print, I'll keep that in mind, and I hopefully would get through a few more prints and maybe learn a little bit more, probably run out of plastic, and then frantically go online and try to find the cheapest solution for good quality plastic for this very specific printer. But other than that, I'm just kind of printing and learning and printing again, and I've only done 2 of them because it takes a long time. And you know, you get home from work and you got like a few hours before bed, so you don't really want to like take a deep dive into a 3D print and then go to bed and just kind of hope for the best. So I got to like dedicate a weekend day to a 3D print if it's something big and or complicated. But hey, that's it for now. That's pretty much what I've learned in the first day, or at least the, you know, day of a day messing with a new 3D printer. So far everything works. I've ran into a few snags as far as after I figured out the extruder heads, you know, how it works. Like sometimes it got stuck and I had to like pull it out and put it back in, and then it would go through, and then the plastic was burnt a little bit. You know, there's just a little knick-knack stuff that I don't really think is worth talking about, but is definitely something that I wouldn't have known without actually experiencing a 3D printer. So, and a lot of this stuff could be, you know, just for this 3D printer itself, like the base, for example. These might be completely unique to the Up Mini printer. I assume they are because I haven't seen them everywhere. Maybe they're not. Oh, that's another thing, the heated plate. I think there's a mod to have a hotter plate. Something about cooling off better or something and not warping. No idea though. This heats, but there's like a hotter version that you could buy for the Up Mini specifically. Don't know, don't care. I haven't had an issue with warping, at least not yet, but that might be a thing in the future. Well guys, hopefully you enjoyed this random video, and hopefully you were not totally offended by me printing a dick butt. If you have any questions, definitely post them down below, but more so, don't tell me how stupid I am in the comments when it comes to 3D print, because I know, I'm an idiot with a camera. Completely accept that. But if you have any tips, anything that's actually useful, you know, anything I talked about today, maybe some stuff you saw here, throw them in the comments down below. I'll probably read them. And if it was interesting or even somewhat useful, probably even click that little heart and respond to you. So definitely post them down below. Thank you for watching, like and subscribe, and have yourself a good day.